You're listening to the TV Obsessive channel, presented by TVObsessive.com. Okay, welcome back to the TV Obsessive podcast. Always, I'm Cameron Crane, executive editor of TVObsessive.com, joined by Ryan Kirksey, writer and contributor for the site. We're with our 11th episode. How you doing today, Ryan?
Well, I don't think I can podcast here anymore, Cameron. I think I'd like to be traded.
Oh,
So
no.
need you to work on that.
I just gave you a 25-year contract.
I
And
haven't seen any
so,
money yet.
so that's surprising. That's surprising. I know it doesn't kick in for a few years, but on your current deal,
Yeah, no, I'm happy. I'm happy with my current deal, and I guess I'll keep going, even though I'm not so sure about this system, but we'll keep going.
all right. Well, that's good. That's good.
How's things going for you today?
Well, it's going pretty well. We're sitting here. It's August 29th. Summer's coming to a close. At least felt summer. Technically, summer lasts until like what, September 21st or something. But
In
school
Texas,
starts.
it's December 21st. That's the official end of summer.
How many seasons do you have in Texas? Two?
One and a half.
One and a half. Okay.
Long summer and then mild spring. That's it.
You don't call it. Is that how people refer to it, or do you call it winter?
No, we get a mild winter, a short spring, and a long summer. That's how we refer to it.
No fall.
Barely, no fall.
Yeah, that's a shame, man. I
I
like the
know,
fall. I'm
I
looking
know.
forward to the
Fall,
fall.
fall is my favorite. Football's coming. New shows are coming. I love fall, but we don't really get it in Texas.
No, no, that's all right. Well, what's in the news this week? What do we got?
Yeah, not too much. We're we talked about this last week. We're still waiting for news on some strike related things. So in the absence of some of that, a couple things caught my eye this week. We're starting to get a few bits of news and notes for the fall. We did see that The Idol was canceled by HBO. I did not watch this controversial show, The Idol. Did you see this show at all?
I couldn't help it. I checked out the first episode, and I feel like I checked out the first episode out of like a prurient interest or
Yeah.
something. It's like, I was like a little disappointed that it wasn't. I felt like I was promised more salaciousness,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I thought it was. I was kind of bored, and I didn't watch it anymore.
Yeah. I
So I
talked
don't.
with
I don't know. I
several
mean,
people who gave it one episode and then that was about it.
it's a lot of people gave it. I mean, it got a lot of negative press from the content. You know, um, and whatever. I wanted to give it a chance, but it didn't
Yeah.
grab me. I guess.
That's so that's it for the Idol. I did notice something interesting. There's some really fun for this day in TV history sites out there, and one today sort of caught my interest as we've talked about for the proliferation of networks and streaming services. That did you know that on this date back in 1967, at that time, the largest TV audience ever sat down and watched the finale of The Fugitive, Dr. Richard Kimball. 78 million people tuned in to find out who killed his wife. I don't know who it was in the show. I know who it was in the movie, but
I
that's just
haven't seen it. I was like, what is 78 million people watched this episode of
yeah.
television that neither of us have seen, apparently.
That's just an astonishing number when you think about today when the finales, maybe the best shows might get 8, 9, 10 million. I mean, can you
Oh,
imagine
yeah.
70 million people watching something?
Well, it's a different world, though. We're just old enough to kind of know, I mean, like neither of us were alive for this
Yeah.
event, but we are, I think both of us old enough to remember, when we were kids and I don't know what would have been really big, like Dynasty and Dallas and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Um,
I did do a little bit of research on this. There are only about three things, maybe four, that top this 78 million. If you don't count like Super Bowls and
and
the
I, I,
moon landing.
I think I can guess one.
Okay, I mean there's one that is tied, roughly, essentially tied, and three that are definitely more than The Fugitive. So let's see how you do.
This is we're guessing the number of people who watched the
Yeah,
thing.
number of viewers, not
Live.
Nielsen or household number of viewers.
Number of viewers. So I'm presuming we're in the probably everything's going to be a bit older, as we were discussing, because part of the point I was saying before is that it used to be so limited what was
Yeah.
available, So maybe I'll guess a couple. The first one that came to mind for me was MASH.
Yeah, number one overall, 105 million people watched the end of MASH.
Yeah, I know that was a big deal. A couple more. I don't know. How about the finale of Friends? That on
Only
there?
about, not quite, only about 55 million.
Finale of Seinfeld. I'm getting lost in the weeds now.
Yes. So Seinfeld, just shy of The Fugitive. Seinfeld had just under 77 million people watch it.
I'm stumped. I just remember when the finale of Seinfeld was on, I had band practice.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't watch it. It was like everyone knew the finale of Seinfeld was on. And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
I got some trombone to play. What else on the list? I get
So the only other two, so MASH 105, the finale of the miniseries Roots at 100 million people. Right. And then at 80 point something million, the finale of Cheers.
Oh, you know what's really weird about
believe.
That is I'm not sure I even know what happens in the finale of Cheers.
It's a good finale. It's one of the better tie story together finales out there.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go watch it. I love Cheers. Maybe I haven't seen all of Cheers. I can't recall what happens in the finale of Cheers. I know what happens in the finale of Seinfeld.
Yes.
And I will defend it. But
yeah, so Cheers, if you watch, it's got one of the more famous or last lines of a show's finale. So yeah, go check that one out. Anyway, that's all I've got for this week. Any other news caught your eye?
Yeah, I mean, on the older TV front, another big name death. Bob Barker passed away this week at 99 years old. Just under 100 without going over.
Yeah, this was. I mean, this one hits home because you're my age. So one of the best things about getting sick and staying home from school was getting to watch Price is Right, and even watching it as an adult. That was just iconic.
I think I've been thinking about that because it seems like everyone says that. Like everyone has this memory. Like, when I was sick as a kid, I stayed home to watch The Price is Right, and I'm thinking, yeah, no, I definitely agree, but also like it was only on for an hour.
Yeah.
So like the impact that it made on us, it would be like, oh, but I'm home from 11 to noon or whatever. And then what? You watch Donahue or something.
Yeah.
And that was probably because it was like the only thing on network TV that we found enjoyable. And then it was like Donahue and Oprah took, like
you got Price is Right, and then it went straight into soap operas and talk shows for the rest of the day.
Right. No, yeah, exactly. But Guiding Light is next up or whatever it was. So yeah, R.I.P. Bob Barker, a legend. Remember to have your pet spayed or neutered in honor of Bob Barker. A couple other little things. Apparently, Max is going to have some AMC shows for the next couple of months. It's like a list of 7 shows. People can look this up. Mostly, I'm just noting it, kind of hitting this beat we've been on in terms of what's going on in the industry, what's going on in the streaming industry. We have another licensing agreement here. So personally, I kind of predict we're going to see more of this kind of stuff. I don't know what all we'll see, but along with the strikes and however that's related, the I don't know, I'm going to say fantasy of like each main production company having their own in-house streaming service and not sharing seems to be kind of falling away a bit.
Yeah, I think whenever there's a deal to be made and money to be shared, they're going to figure out a way to do it, particularly right now as they may be hurting for content or ad dollars or whatever it is. But you're right, there's going to be a proliferation of this, I think, in much more than we have now in the years to come.
It's really interesting to me because it kind of started that way. I think that when I think of as the heyday of Netflix, they were like the only streaming service. They pulled
Right.
all this stuff in from all over the place. And then each place said, we're going to make our own. They took their stuff away from Netflix, So we'll see. Speaking of the strike, I was telling you right before we got on air, I just saw the story like literally, minutes before we met up today. Let me pull it up real quick. So there's going to be a podcast with Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, Stephen Colbert, Seth Meyers, and John Oliver. And the late night shows were one of the first things to stop airing new episodes when the writer's strike hit. And so apparently, I don't know. I mean, I guess they're going to talk about the strike and labor issues. Like that's the plan. And the proceeds that they get are going to help their striking staffers, or maybe not just the striking staffers, not just the writers, but the staffs of the shows in general, who sort of aren't working because of the strike. So I thought that was kind of cool. I don't know. I've been missing the late night shows. What about you?
Yeah, it's the same with me. I mean, number one, good for them. Good initiative. Good things to do as they support the people that work so hard for them. I know there were some similar creative structures that were put together during COVID to help those people along when those shows shut down. But I think my first thought when I saw this was, yeah, it does say that they're going to spend this time of the podcast talking about the strike. It's like, yeah, how much can you say? How long can this podcast go on before we all get kind of bored of that talk? Surely you're going to branch out at some point. I like all these guys, but to hear all five of them talk about just the strike, every week, I'm not sure how long that will that
Yeah, I
will
don't know.
keep an
I'm curious
audience.
about it. How much they pull in past experiences,
Yeah,
how kind of worker friendly it is in general. I'm really kind of curious about it. Yeah, I guess they're not really filling that void of the late night talk shows for me with this. Like here's the people, but
yeah.
the Daily Show used to have this tagline of where more people get their news than probably should.
Oh yeah.
That's always been me a little bit. I will admit, like I'll read the news and stuff, but like, yeah. So, maybe that's good. I'll pay a little bit less attention to all of this nonsense out there. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's about all we have for news. What have you been watching lately?
Yeah, you're right. Relatively light week. So we talked about this last week, and I did write up the first two episodes up on the site, tvobsessive.com right now. So last week, first two episodes of Ahsoka on Disney Plus. Tonight, we're recording on Tuesday. Tonight will be the third episode that will air. And so I'll be putting some thoughts down about that episode soon. And so will you give me 1 minute just to sort of talk about Ahsoka here, just sort of address some things that have come up this week about that. This is
Sure.
mini soapbox.
All right. The floor is yours, Ryan.
So I enjoyed this show. I thought that it was well done. I thought that it was creative. I thought that the new characters were very compelling. I found myself drawn to the story and enjoyed it. But I realized that I think I enjoyed it so much because I had just spent so much time invested in Star Wars Rebels and Clone Wars and Tales of the Jedi and all the material that needed to be there for each of the pieces of these first two episodes to make sense. And so I think the real criticism of this show that's come out of last week is if you have not done those things, it's interesting. It's perhaps I think you appreciate sort of what the story is that's being told and sort of what's being put together with the universe. But as I put in my piece, if you're just if you love the Star Wars movies and you watch the Obi-Wan Kenobi show and you are a fan of all those characters, but you've said, well, the animated stuff is not for me, then you do not understand or know or get the background of any of these characters in this show whatsoever. And so the people that are saying, well, I can't get into it because I don't have all the background and all the details. I get that. And think that television should be enjoyed by anyone that wants to watch it. So I'm sort of torn there between the idea of they need to give some of this typical Star Wars fan service versus continue this story that was told through these things that, frankly, many people have not watched.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, speaking on it in a general way, I do sometimes feel like it's faded a little bit. Like I feel like the old ethos used to be everything had to stand on its own,
Mm-hmm.
and you think about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Does everything stand on its own? I'm not so sure anymore, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, in other words, you could make a sequel, but and it's meaningfully a sequel or a trilogy or whatever, but like the focus on this is also a self-contained enjoyable film, you know,
Yeah.
like maybe you could enjoy this without the background. On television front, I think I recall Vince Gilligan even saying something like that about El Camino,
Mm-hmm.
the Breaking Bad movie. He was like, well, we tried to make this as a movie that you could, in theory, watch and enjoy if you hadn't seen Breaking Bad. I mean, continue to say, like, I don't know why you would do that, but
Yeah.
so that's interesting. The other thing that put me in mind of is I haven't watched Ahsoka, but as much as I sometimes will rail against exposition, maybe just give more exposition. Like there's a way
Yeah.
to do it to just get it out of the way. Like you think about the beginning of the Lord of the Rings movies, they're just like, here's a bunch of narration. All right, now we're good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And we got an interesting variation of the famous Star Wars scroll at the beginning of the show that gave a brief bit of background, but they, all throughout are referencing Ezra Bridger and Thrawn and Kanan Jarrus and all these people that you think, okay, I don't know any of those names. And you wouldn't unless you spent the amount of time with these things. So again, I'm sort of two minds about it.
it
They
would
can
have
do what
been
they want, but it's serving one audience one way and one audience another way.
I think it would have been amusing if they'd had just a really long scroll thing that everything's
Yeah.
just like have people like pausing, like as if reading this like really, really long scroll that summarizes like everything that
Yeah.
happened at Star Wars Rebels. Um, but cool, yeah.
Anyway,
Again,
so just mini soapbox that and some of the things we've talked about in previous weeks, kind of all that I'm tuned into at the moment.
right on. So one thing I was going to mention is also on tonight is the finale of Justified City Primeval. I've been writing on week to week. I haven't necessarily been banging the drum for it all along as hard as I could, but I am excited for this finale, and I'm excited for people to see it. Have you kept up with the show, Ryan?
I've still only seen the first episode. I think after my Star Wars deep dive, I'll be able to give some more time to it, but still only the first one in.
Right on. I don't think you have time to catch up by tonight.
No, I don't.
Be careful, or just don't care about spoilers.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
put on to take on the Cameron ethos and just say, you know what, good stuff can't be spoiled.
That's right.
Um, so yeah, I mean, I think that's why we were talking about what's coming up. We're about to dig into Winning Time. Um, we don't know what's going to be on HBO at 9 p.m. after Winning Time is over.
Yeah, we've
Next
we've
month,
had
which
this
is kind of weird.
long stretch now of White Lotus and Last of Us and Succession and Winning Time and sort of all these significant major shows that have done so well in past years or have come out and been major hits like Last of Us. And you and I were both checking, and we just don't know in 3 weeks' time after Winning Time ends what's going to fill that slot until potentially maybe down the road we get True Detective season 4 with Jodie Foster. You mentioned there's another show on the way at the end of October, but yeah, we
Yeah,
don't know exactly what's coming.
this is what I noticed looking into it. They put the Gilded Age season 2 on Sunday night. It looks like starting October 29th. I believe this was a Monday show
Mm,
during season 1. Um, for whatever that's worth, it's just like the 9 p.m. Sunday spot on HBO.
yeah.
Clearly, they treat as their prestige spot. Like that's where they put the most prestige show they have. At my read on it anyway. but there's like 5 weeks, I think I counted between the end of Winning Time and the beginning of that. So I
Yeah.
was speculating I'm guessing they're gonna like throw in some documentary. I don't know. Or do they have some other mini series that's 5 weeks long? But it gets
Yeah.
me wondering in a broader sense, are they already kind of starting to run out of content, you
Yeah.
know, because of the strikes and so on.
Stretching things out as far as they can. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know, that's pure speculation, but I'd love to see True Detective sometime soon. Is it done? I have no idea.
That's I
Um,
think the question is we've seen a trailer, we've seen the synopsis, we know that most or all of the principal photography, but I don't know about any edits or what they might have to do to sort of touch things up.
mhm.
Um,
I mean, they run these things, they run up against the wire a lot of times. I don't know if people know this, but
yeah,
once I started getting some screeners and some early access, every so often you'll run into something with like, well, this isn't completely done. You
yeah,
know, you can watch it, but here's a note about, the added dialogue. Whatever. It's so why I'm blanking on that acronym again. But anyway, they can't do that. Sometimes they go back and they add lines in later.
yes, yes,
And they can't do that because the actors are on strike.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
we'll see.
I
We
mean,
do have
I know there are other things coming. The morning show on Apple TV, if you Apple TV Plus is coming back. There's a show I got intrigued by the trailer called The Changeling, also on Apple TV Plus, that's coming. So there are things coming in the fall. We just don't have a lot of details or know when and how soon we'll get some of this stuff.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit about the Changeling. So I'm planning on writing on that for the site. I haven't seen it yet. Neither have I read the book. It is based on a book and like an award-winning horror fantasy novel, I think is,
Interesting.
and I don't have the author's name authority either. We'll talk about it again later.
Yeah.
I would write on it. You're gonna watch it. Maybe we'll talk about the book. Maybe we'll dig into it even if it's good.
Hey, why not?
In the latter part of the
Yeah.
podcast.
We're gonna have to at
Um,
some point sort of break our HBO streak. We're gonna have to move on to some other. If somebody else has anything worth covering, we'll have to move on to another network at some
yeah.
point. But
Well, we
hey,
will.
maybe not.
Hey man, we started with the bear.
That's right. That's
I
right.
mean, it's not. But I do like what we're doing here with Winning Time, where we're doing an episode of the podcast per episode of the show, something that airs weekly. I like that model. So we'll
Yeah.
have to see. We haven't even really talked about what we're going to do after this, but we have a few more weeks before that becomes pressing, I guess. On that
Yeah.
note, should we get to Winning Time? You
I'd love
ready?
to. This was a fun episode. Let's get into episode 4.
All right, sounds good. So as always, we're going to take a short little break here. I'll pop in a little music. On the other side of that, we're going to dig into Winning Time, season 2, episode 4, the title of which I don't have in front of me. Um, Anyways, the one that aired 2 days ago. And spoilers on the table for everything in Winning Time, up to and including season 2, episode 4. So do be aware of that. And we'll pick up in just a few seconds. Okay, so we're back talking about Winning Time, season 2, episode 4. Ryan's just giving me the title, The New World, which that's kind of an interesting title. I didn't really take
It
much thought
is.
of
It
that.
is. It is. I'm curious of the multi layers behind that. But yeah,
How,
New World, episode 4.
how do you interpret this? Doesn't seem like a Columbus reference or something.
Based on the trailer for next week, I'd almost think that the New World or the New World Order is coming in episode 5.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
next week. It's next
yeah.
week. What does it have to do here? So we've got he's got the $25 million contract in the episode that gets leaked to the press by Red Auerbach. We'll talk about that in a moment. Um, Kareem's upset, of course. Everyone's upset. Everyone is upset in every which way in this episode. No one is happy. And throughout the entirety of the episode, Paul Westhead makes it worse. That's my summary. Like he's constantly turning around trying to placate someone, and in his attempt to placate that person, manages to not only not placate them but piss them off in addition to the person he'd already pissed off. And he does that over and over again over the course of the hour, basically. Does that seem like a fair summary?
That seems like a fair summary, culminating in a cliffhanger where Magic Johnson asks for, I don't say asks, he tells the press that he'd like a trade.
Yeah.
Right. So we have to first look at this. This is a significant thing to end on. So did this actually happen?
Right.
Yes, this actually happened. There was a New York Times article that quotes Magic Johnson. You can go back and find this. He did say that he would like a trade. Now, obviously, this is before the course of some events we anticipate is going to happen in the next episode. But Magic was very unhappy under this Paul Westhead regime, and the two just could not, even after a 5-game winning streak, which was depicted in the episode, could not get along.
Yeah. And I suppose we'll hold off on what happens next. You know what happens next. People listening may wait know what happens next, but like that's directly what's going to happen in episode 5. It's absolutely clear. Like, if you know the history, how much more than that might happen in episode 5, I don't know. This one I did think was interesting because it's kind of bookended with the stuff about his massive contract at the beginning, and then the trade request at the end. Of course, that contract, I don't know if we hit on this detail previously, for sure not. That contract kicks in 1984, I believe.
After the first deal, yeah.
Yeah, so it was a 25-year contract extension. Yeah, for what it's worth. I'm not sure how much he was getting paid at that exact present moment. But still, you go the swing from, precisely as Jerry Buss framed it, this is a lifelong commitment to the Lakers, to requesting a trade, demanding a trade, however you want to put this. That's quite a swing. And obviously there's fictionalization that occurs in the episode, and we don't know certain things. Like at one moment he's trying to talk to Jerry Buss, and Jerry Buss kind of like not ignores him. He was like, hey, don't worry about it. Let Paul do his job or whatever. I don't know. But we do know these things happen. Now, do you know the detail, Ryan, if he actually like said in the locker room like that? Is that known? Or I know he requested a trade, but do we know
the level of detail? I don't know the specifics, but I can only imagine, at least back in those days, there was, a press scrum in the locker room after a certain period of time after the team came in after a game. So they're just sort of, what was depicted there is what would typically happen. You just crowd around a guy's locker and try to get any kind of quote out of him that you can. So, that type of environment or sort of pushing down on somebody probably led him to snap more than he already had in the game. So I imagine it was something similar, although drama than what we saw there. Yeah.
It seemed plausible to me, but I didn't know for sure if that was exactly how it happened. But it definitely seemed plausible. And they won that game, right? But, prior to that, you have Magic not entering the huddle and all of that. This is accurate as well, right?
Yeah, all this is extremely accurate. The team in 1981-82 started 7-4. They did start 2-4, then they ended up 7-4. This 7-4 point sort of becomes a pivotal moment in the season, which again we'll see next week. But yeah, this sort of shaky start, the winning streak, the frustration about the what style of play the Paul Westhead has put into the team, and then apparently the real story is before halftime of this game, Magic was off getting a cup of water, and Paul Westhead thought it took him too long to get into the huddle. Then at the end of the game, and this game in Salt Lake, he thought it once again took him too long to get into the huddle, so he chewed him out. And so Magic didn't appreciate that, kind of stormed off. And then the locker room after the game, presumably, is when he said something about wanting a trade.
Yeah, Paul Westhead. And certainly, so the other thing we have a note here, the Sports Illustrated story, this could not have helped. This is ridiculous. Paul Westhead has gone from, I mean, I liked him. I like Jason Segel. I like the portrayal, the kind of background of him as a college professor or whatever too. I
Yeah.
found endearing at first. Like I can relate. People don't know I do something similar. Um, but he really took the turn towards like pretentious douchebag with all of
Yep.
this stuff. And that Sports Illustrated story that is real as well. We
Yes.
confirm that, right?
Yes. And kudos to Jason Segel, a guy who has spent most of his career playing characters that are sort of endearing or that you really can relate to, funny characters. He sort of taken this dramatic turn in Shrinking, that show that he's on with Harrison Ford, and now this show as well. But sort of really having to play a bad guy that absolutely no one on the show or audience watching the show could possibly like. I mean, I just think the performance has been great. Sadly, it's probably about to come to an end.
Well, I don't know. Well, yeah, for him, probably, yeah, yeah. That I thought you were, yeah. It's very hard to like not talk about what's going to happen next. I mean, we're talking about the history in general terms. I just feel like this is so.
Yeah,
I mean, people know the broad strokes. I'm just trying to keep us from hitting the precise detail, but
yeah.
we're obliquely doing it anyway, I guess. But yeah, I love his Seagull's performance is just. I love his little facial tics and stuff. Like in that scene where he's talking to Jerry Buss, he keeps making these little facial movements all the time, and I don't know, just great. As I say, it just seems like he's constantly trying to placate someone, but he just keeps making everything worse and everyone hate him.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that about the sort of the facial tick, because he constantly looks to me like he is thinking and calculating something while he's talking at the same time, right? Like he's trying to come up with the next anecdote or phrase or saying or historical moment he could attach this to, and he just is always I don't know. It's just some very slight mannerisms that I think have really made this such a good character. Again, for somebody that how much fun must it be to play somebody everybody hates? I don't know, but he's really, I think, found the right way to do it.
Yeah. When we see him falling into a bit of the I don't know, like he thinks he's a superstar, right? We see him like clubbing at one point.
Yeah,
He's definitely got an inflated ego from I don't know the championship. He thinks the system works.
yeah,
I mean, even though they got knocked out the previous season by the Rockets and so on, as we talked about, it's just not his fault. Um, he says something like you can plug anyone into the system. That's
yeah.
not making your guys happy either. You know, there's just I don't know.
Yeah, I found it interesting to sort of balance that aspect of he's sort of become this guy in the show who tests every limit of power that he has and will exert every limit of power that he has, whether in with management meetings, with players on the court, anything that he has. And then he has this dinner meeting with his old buddy, his old coach, Jack McKinney, who for the first time in a long time, somebody sort of puts him in his place and tells him they're going to knock him down a peg. And he just didn't know how to respond to that. And I found
Yeah,
it to be sort of this interesting revisit of that. This guy that he used to be so subservient to is now saying, I'm going to sort of take you down inch by inch. I was glad to see Jack McKinney again.
yeah, love seeing Jack McKinney. And I mean, I know he kind of took a heel turn in some ways also, but with not without warrant, you know. But I thought that was great. They start out their meeting and they're all friendly, the restaurant or whatever. And then Jack McKinney's like, I'm going to expose you, not all at once. You're going to do it halfway. And I'm going to do it the rest of the way the second time we play later in the season.
Yeah.
And I find myself thinking, like, you get him. You get him, Jack McKinney. But
He must have seen that thing that happened in the huddle and then read about this trade. I mean, I'm only speculating now, but he must have just
uh,
been laughing all night long after seeing that seeing that
Of
happen
course, you know
in his building.
his career doesn't go great either. Went to the Pacers and won Coach of the Year, and now he's on the downward slope in terms of his career path.
Yeah,
Also, I wonder if we'll see him again. Honestly, we might not see him again in the show.
yeah, we may not.
Um,
We may not.
but it was great to see him here. We kind of jumped over in terms of our fact checking the Red Auerbach thing. Apparently, this is not accurate from what you have.
Yeah, not accurate. Red Auerbach, again, owner and basically godfather of the Celtics, was the head of the players committee that would have reviewed these types of deals. But no, once rumors of this started to leak out about the contract just to the press in general, Jerry Buss gave a press conference announcing that this deal was in place, right? So they sort of put that all to bed. Red Auerbach, for as much of an asshole as he is, didn't sort of stick it to Jerry Buss and just leak this to the press.
Any space for a conspiracy theory that Red Auerbach did secretly leak it to the press? Like, obviously, in the show, you have him like standing up in the middle of the game, right out. But any space for that? Like as you say, he had the information. Seems like maybe the Lakers Buss was kind of trying to keep it hush hush.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
bitter rivals. Can I be a conspiracy
I mean,
theorist?
I would love for it to be true, and certainly the context is set up for it to be true with him in that position on that committee. But in terms of what's on the record and people have reported, it doesn't seem that he was the source of that.
Okay. So we have no verification. So what we're saying is, if Red Auerbach did this, that's not officially known.
Right. Not officially.
And
Not
I mean,
officially.
the official version, no, he didn't. He didn't do it, but it got out somehow, right? That's all I'm saying.
That's right.
Got out there somehow. But yeah, that was highly dramatized. I don't know if anyone thought he actually like went up to a reporter in the middle of a game
Yeah.
and said
I
that. But
mean, I'm glad that we got, I don't know the validity of this preseason game between the Lakers and Celtics in LA. Maybe that happened. Maybe that didn't. And I'm glad we're getting these little nuggets of Red Auerbach and the Celtics. But man, I'm waiting for let's have the Lakers and Celtics on the screen all the time together. Right. And we haven't seen too much of that. And I'm wondering when that's going to happen over these next few episodes. Do you think we'll get more of that?
yeah, I'm wondering about this. I think we will. And you were also expressing the word to me about what we get to 1984, as we previously predicted, and I still predict that. How much basketball is there going to be? We've hit this point before that the strength of the show is kind of in all of the behind the scenes stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The strength of the show really is in all the off the court stuff.
Right.
So I wonder how much they'll ultimately get one more narrative step down the road and like speed race some stuff.
They almost have to. I mean, again, we are 11 games into the 81-82 season, which essentially means we are just about 3 full seasons away from the first time these two teams meet in the finals together. One of those two teams is going to win one championship in between now and then. But it is, in terms of the pace of the show, a long time until they finally get together. But we were introduced to it in that first moments of episode 1 here. So I'm just sort of curious if we get there or not.
Yeah. I mean, I think they could be very efficient. So there's a couple of ways they could do it. It could be one episode a season.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it might be even more condensed. Like if we watch through episode 5 and they're like, man, how 2 days passed or something, and then they'll just kind of they've done this a couple of times where they really kind of race through a bunch of basketball and they put the scores on there and all of that. So I wonder how that will go. And again, fingers crossed the show gets renewed for a third season and a fourth season if they want that. However many seasons they want, really, honestly.
Absolutely.
Because
I mean, they have, as we've discussed many times, they've somewhat boxed themselves into this career of Magic Johnson the way they started the show. But however many seasons it takes to get there, there's plenty of basketball and off the court content to get us there.
No, but I'm going even further. because I'm like, I want all of that, however long it takes. And
Yeah.
if they want to, if the people behind the scenes want to
Yeah.
carry forward and do Phil Jackson and Kobe and Shaq and like practically an entirely new cast except for
Yep.
who carries through. There are people who carry through. Go for it. Let's
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
6
Yeah.
seasons, 7, 8. However much. Because I mean, I just love the style of the show so much. I just find it to be so fun to watch. But we'll see. Focus on season 3 for now. More winning time. Hashtag
Yeah.
more winning time.
But more winning time, certainly watch this show if you're on the fence about it. If they did do that, and no matter what happens over the next few seasons, one group of characters that's going to remain has to be obviously the Buss family. That family still is in somewhat in control. The daughter's in control of the team. They maintain this until Jerry's passing. I want to say only about 7 or 8 years ago. The team has remained under his control, and so now they sort of keep inserting these things with his daughter. Obviously, Jeanie Buss has got this tension with Honey, this woman that Jerry had brought back into his life. I just, as there's so much interesting off the court and on the court basketball stuff, just kind of curious your thoughts on, do we need this sort of succession in the Buss family aspect of the show?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like clearly Jeanie Buss is kind of the reason for all of this, and
Mm-hmm.
that's part of what makes me think, hey, look, you could keep it going. It could become like the ultimate arc of the show could become Jeanie Buss's arc. You know what I
Yep.
mean? It could be like, hey, she's actually the main character. I just looked it up. Jerry Buss died in 2013, February of 2013, so a little over 10 years ago. But yeah, I mean, in terms of what they're doing here, presuming they don't do that, which I think that's kind of far fetched.
Right.
I understand why they're hitting on it, but yeah, I don't know how deeply invested I feel in what's going on with the Buss family, particularly with the brothers. Like it's
Yeah. The brother shows up for 10 seconds in this episode, grabs and or finds out his sister stole the last English muffin, and then walks off without saying a word. I mean, that is just sort of showing the dynamic of how things are working in the family. I'm not sure what they're doing with that family now.
yeah. I mean, this is the thing. It could be that they're doing it even if it hangs on viewers having knowledge of Jeanie Buss or like looking into Jeanie Buss outside of the show or something
Yeah.
like that. Because you could have that arc, which would be kind of not nothing to think about. Well, like the Jeanie Buss, the daughter being the heir to this whole thing, particularly given when the show is set here at the beginning, but I don't know. I just don't know how far they're going to go with that. And um, I feel I feel like there was more in the first season that had to do with some of these other things around the team and the
Mm-hmm.
arena, and maybe they'll bring that in a little bit more, because I did find those storylines interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the first season was all about Magic's rookie year when they win the championship. There's less conflict going on within the team, so they're focusing on conflict outside the team. Now there's so much, whether dramatized or not, conflict happening amongst the teammates, among the coaches, between the coaches and the teammates, between the coaches and the owner. That's really where the focus has been, and much less so on the family this time.
Yeah, well, maybe there'll be some space for it. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
maybe there'll be a storyline that involves Jeanie Buss about how it came to be that they had the All-Star game where Marvin Gaye performed the national anthem.
That they better get there. That's coming
Mm-hmm.
next season in basketball terms on this show. So they
Yeah,
better they
indeed.
better they better do it.
Give
So
us that episode 6. I don't
yeah.
think it's gonna happen. The
So
other
my
thing,
my last
go
question
ahead.
for you is just about these conversations we keep seeing between Magic Johnson and his used to be girlfriend Cookie. Now she's with someone else and trying to start another family. Uh, Spoiler alert: they end up together in the long term. Cookie and Magic Johnson do so. Just I don't know. Do you feel like these phone calls they keep having are just for exposition's sake? Do you feel like that they add something to it? Is it just to get inside Magic's head without having to, do a thought bubble over him? What's the story there?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't do a ton for me. I guess, I mean, I can see why it's there. Kind of keeping that going as a thread of the narrative, you know, um, including, say, we tend to say the thread includes Magic's kind of personal life and sex life more broadly,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and that makes some sense. I don't know about how they're doing it. I'm prone to kind of agree with your complaint slash question or something. These scenes aren't doing a ton for me, but it I don't know. I mean, any thoughts on how else they might approach this? If you want to kind of keep that alive as an aspect of the story.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. A way to keep her as a part of Magic's life when we know that so much of his future is going to be with her. Um, a way to introduce the audience or expose the audience to what Magic is feeling. Although I feel like they do a good job of him having conversations with Jerry Buss or having these arguments with his teammates or confronting the coach. Um, and so I don't know. I think maybe what you said could be it. There's just a way to keep her engaged in this story so that when she becomes a bigger part of it, we know why. But I have no idea about the validity of how often they talked on the phone and all this stuff. No concept of that.
Yeah, I don't either. Or I don't know if anyone knows that kind of question.
Yeah,
But I do think back to again how they started season one, which was with this HIV diagnosis. That there is a sense in which that dad is the big arc. And so something about this, I guess, does kind of tie into um, these things regarding Magic's personal life, and yeah, I don't know. I
yeah.
mean,
I'm
I don't
curious to see.
hate it. I don't hate
Yeah.
it, so it's fine.
There are some. I mean, I hate to say this for sure that I really really like, but to me, there's so much that entertains me. There's some fat that could be trimmed. I think is what I feel about some of these storylines, or put on the back burner into another time when they're more relevant to what's going on. So again, it doesn't take away from my enjoyment of it. Just sort of curious why we keep needing to force Cookie in there and force Genie in there and just sort of have them be on the screen for a few minutes just so we don't forget about them.
Yeah, it does feel a little bit that way. But what we want, I guess, is we want more Pat Riley, Paul Westhead. We didn't hit on Pat Riley enough in this episode
Yeah.
as of yet. The big thing that stood out to me was how, I mean, you have the scenes where he and Paul Westhead are arguing, and Adrian Brody's great, just kind of great. But as things are coming to a head, I love this little moment where like he kind of tries to call Paul back. He tries to rein him in. Paul's going to go storming off to go talk to Magic, and he just realizes it's not going to work. It's not worth the effort. He just kind of like lets him go. And you get the sense that like Pat Riley's fully aware of how bad of an idea what Paul Westhead is about to do is. Is that how it
Yeah.
landed for you? Or
Yeah, no, that certainly hits it to me. Adrian Brody plays it so well as a character that has to live on a fence between trying to placate a coach, develop a relationship with a player, position himself as someone who would be the right guy to eventually take over. Again, we don't associate Showtime Lakers with Paul Westhead. For anybody that's unfamiliar with the Lakers, there's another coach who's coming that's we associate with. So he's just playing sort of this multi-layered character very, very well. I've been so impressed by, again, both of them, him and Jason Segel.
Yeah, and I was impressed. I mean, it doesn't feel to me like Pat Riley is out to stab Paul Westhead in the back here, at least
Right.
in this episode.
Right.
It feels like he has a sense that things aren't working and Paul won't listen. And you have that other scene where he says, you're not leaving us any way out. Well, and
the scene in the Salt Lake game where they just had the confrontation on the bench. Magic's gone off. Westhead is running off to confront him. Pat calls to him and then sort of lets it be. Basically a sign of, you can go walk off that cliff. I'm not gonna stop you. You go go ruin your chances here.
Yeah. I think that's what I was referring to earlier,
Yeah.
right? It's just subtle, perfect kind of, all right, man,
Yep.
go make your bed. I
Do it
guess.
yourself. Yep.
And
Exactly.
we'll see what that bed looks like
Yeah.
on Sunday.
No spoilers. No spoilers,
Yeah,
but yeah.
refraining from, as you say, the broad stroke of, you don't associate Paul Westhead with the Showtime Lakers.
Right.
The details are, they'll be there next week for sure.
They'll be there next
We
week.
kind of know what's going to happen next
That's
week.
right.
Um,
I'm really looking forward to episode 5. I think this showdown, the confrontation is going to be quite good.
yeah, me too. I think that's about all we have here on episode 4. Anything we missed?
I think that's it. That covers the high points. Like I said, we're moving at an interesting pace, but I think a good pace, and we're hitting the right notes. So yeah, this week's episode is going to be. I'm interested to see what happens and then how fast they move after that.
Yeah, indeed. Me too. All right, so I guess that does it for this time. Thanks for listening. As always, please do check out the website, tvobsessive.com. You can follow the site on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Mastodon, if you so prefer. Search TV Obsessive and you'll find it. If you want to follow me on Twitter on @CameronCC. Ryan, what do you want to plug?
Yeah, I'll should have within the next 24 or 36 hours, next piece on Ahsoka coming up on tvobsessive.com. I'm at Cable Vox Score on the X/Twitter, and you can always find me there.
The social media site formerly known
Yeah.
as Twitter. It's so weird because I go to it in my web browser. It's still
Yep.
twitter.com.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's bookmarked for me as Twitter, and it shows up as Twitter. So who knows what's going on over there?
I don't know what they're doing. The fact that they stopped calling tweets, they changed the button to say post. I mean, it's like, I don't know, man. This is like Kleenex coming out and saying, please call them facial tissues.
That's right.
It's so weird. It's so weird. Anyway, thanks everyone for listening. Please, give us a good review wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube. Please, check out the YouTube channel. Subscribe, all that good stuff. And yeah, we'll be back next week with Winning Time, season 2, episode 5 next week.
Right. Till next time. See you then.